Hello everyone, it is Aussies Elect back with another video. So, what do we have here? It's something from the Australian. Well, this is their MRP modeling for the upcoming federal election. What exactly this is a poll-based model for the upcoming election. I would tell you more about exactly what it is, but unfortunately the more info section is paywalled. So I can't exactly tell you the details, but I'll try to explain it. So it's basically taking in polling from seats and using it on other seats based on demographics as a way to sort of get results off seats that haven't necessarily been polled with high sample sizes. So it's this big like algorithmic thing. I can't really explain it, but we don't know how well it will work out. This is the first time it's been used in Australia, but I thought we'd go through it because it does have some interesting observations. And the first one that you'll note is that it is giving the Labor Party a decisive win of 80 seats to 63. This is not in any way good for the coalition. They are 13 seats off a majority, whilst the Labor Party are 4 seats into a majority. So, what seats does it give to the Labor parties? We'll go state by state. So we have here Bass, 51 to 49 to the Labor Party. It's not giving them Braddon and Lyons. Pretty safe for the Labor Party. In Victoria, Corangamite is the only seat in the whole country that is a Labor seat that is threatened because it's slightly red. So Labor are tipped slightly ahead, but it's close to 50-50 in the seat. As for Dunkley, which was one that they were worrying about, they're safe there. They're also safe in McEwen, and they're also looking to take the seats of Chisholm and the seat of Higgins. And an independent is set to win the seats of Kooyong and the seat of Goldstein. Some other seats that are kind of close is the seat of Casey. Unfortunately for the independent in Nichols, it doesn't seem to be close for them at all there. But once again, this is just a model, so we don't know what to think about it. And Flinders is actually surprisingly close as well. The seats of Deakin and Matroba are still out of winning range for the Labor Party, but only by a couple of points. So South Australia has Labor ahead in Boothby by 53-47, which is something consistent with a lot of the other opinion polls we've gotten. And Labor are also tied on the seat of Sturt. So if we go across to Western Australia, Labor are ahead in the seats of Swan and Pearce. They are also ahead in the safe seat of Cowan. If I can find it, here we go, 59-41. So that's going to stay with them. I mean, it wasn't a safe seat before, but this is saying it's a safe seat. As for the seat of Hasluck, which I'm trying to find, here it is, Labor are behind 52-48. But that wasn't one that we've been predicting as a Labor gain in recent weeks. Labor are ahead both in Lingiari and in Solomon by quite a large margin, so that's not really a worry for them. Labor are just behind in Leichhardt, but are ahead in the seat of Brisbane, interestingly enough, if I can find it. Here it is, yeah, 54-46. The Greens are only just behind there on primary vote. They're on 28%, Labor on 29%, so that could also be a Greens win. The seat of Ryan is also 50-50, and the Greens are also just behind there. So we could see one of these seats possibly go to the Greens based on this information. They're just out of reach of leapfrogging Labor on their vote, and they could end up Labor preferences go to the Greens preferences, I believe, more so than the other way around. The seat of Dixon is still a pretty close call. The seat of Longman is also 50-50, and all of the other Queensland sort of marginal seats for the Labor Party are staying with there. There's nothing else that is really Labor's getting in Queensland. All of the ones that were sort of like marginal back in 2016, are sticking with the Liberal Party, or the Liberal National Party rather. The seat of Page is pretty close. The seat of Richmond is a blowout for the Labor Party, and the Greens aren't anywhere near striking distance for that. The seat of Hunter is a massive blowout. This is sort of one that I've been talking about. Doesn't look like the coalition are going to win the seat from these results. Same as the seat of Patterson. If I can find the seat of Shortland, I believe it's also the same. Yeah, Shortland 60-40. So what's happening in New South Wales, though? Remember, this is the seat that had like a ton of Labor marginal seats, but the coalition are not ahead in any of them, including the seat of Gilmore, which has Labor ahead 53-47. Labor are tied in the seats of Bennelong and Lindsay with the coalition. but they are ahead very slightly in the seat of Robertson, and they are ahead quite decisively in the seat of Reid. They're just behind in the seat of Banks. And as for the independents, the one in Warringah, Zali Steggall is ahead, but the challengers in Mackellar, Wentworth, and North Sydney are behind. But Mackellar is very interesting because it's actually quite close, given that hasn't had as much a focus and attention on it as Wentworth and North Sydney, where in the case of North Sydney, they're not even counting as the independent getting into the two-party prefer. They're saying that other candidates are only getting 18%. So I don't know, take that with a grain of salt. So yeah, I mean that's interesting stuff. It's very good for the Labor Party. Gives the Greens two options to win seats off the coalition. In the other seats that the Greens are competitive in Victoria, they're not. They haven't gotten very far. So I believe there's Wills. Labor's still massively ahead. Macnamara, that's just between Labor and the coalition, and Cooper, Labor massively ahead. So really, according to this, Higgins, the Greens are also pretty far behind Labor. So according to this, really, the Greens should be putting their focus and attention on the seats of Ryan and the seat of Brisbane. I'll also mention that the seat of Griffith doesn't have the Greens in the two-party preferred, although that one's sort of close-ish. But yeah, I mean that's a Labor seat, and it's probably advantageous for them strategically if they would focus on the coalition. But I'm not part of the Greens party, so I don't make those decisions. So One Nation have 20% in the seat of right. I believe they had 17% last time, so that's pretty consistent. But apart from that, One Nation, if you go scroll up, they're not getting too much anywhere else. Maranoa 15%. Where is it? Hunter 16%. Interestingly, the coalition is said to only have 16% in Hunter, so that's kind of a bit strange. The Hunter one, I'm not really sure exactly what the deal with that is. 16% in Flynn, 19% in Dawson. So nothing that really stands out. 16% in Capricornia. So right is their highest one, and the United Australia Party is they got 10% in Corwell. Yeah, there's not really much to speak about there. So yeah, even in Hughes, I think they've only got like 5%. So rest in peace to the United Australia Party. But yeah, take a look at this. It's also interesting to look at the independent percentages on each seat, but absolutely take this with a grain of salt. But what this does sort of say is what the statistics are pointing to is a Labor victory, and a Labor victory in a majority. Now, last video I did was on Saturday, and the timing of that was pretty important because on Sunday we did have a couple of polls get released, which was this shock Ipsos poll, which gave Labor a two-party vote of 57 to 43, and then also a news poll where Labor widened their lead to 54-46. We also got a Morgan poll where Labor lost ground, but it was only because they changed from respondent allocated preferences to last election preferences, allocated preferences. Yeah. Overall, very good polling for Labor. There was also some polls released by Channel 10 leaked polls, which had the Labor Party ahead 55 to 45 in Bennelong, and basically ahead in Reid, Robertson, and then the seats they're worried about of Gilmore and Parramatta. I'll quickly just go back to Parramatta because that was a seat that has been mentioned by both myself and the media a lot, and that is a seat that is massively ahead for the Labor Party, and they're also slightly ahead in the seat of Greenway as well, which is one that I've had some focus on. So, if anything, my prediction of Greenway being tighter than Parramatta came true. But yeah, and it's my sort of observations of New South Wales haven't seemed to have come into quite fruition. It seems to be going pretty well for the Labor Party actually, in terms of it's actually possibly their best state, New South Wales, in terms of the amount of gains they're going to get. But yeah, so basically things have changed. What happened was I expected there to be a shift towards the coalition for two reasons. The first reason was because we were going towards the end of the campaign and things tend to just narrow up. And the second reason was because of the media's focus on Anthony Albanese's NDIS quote unquote gaffe. I thought that they would actually affect things. It seems it went the other way. Albanese's percentages improved. we go into the leadership rating, well, it's actually down a little bit. I think that's just because of tracking. Albanese did improve himself on preferred prime minister slightly. So and Labor did improve themselves on the polls. So Labor Party are looking pretty good at the moment. By what I've said, they would get a majority in an election if it was held today. Like if we look at it, so Labor Party are probably going to pick up at least one seat in Queensland, but they have a chance to pick up two. The Greens have a chance to pick up one, but at least one in Queensland. Labor Party will be picking up Reid in New South Wales, and they will probably be picking up Robertson and possibly Lindsay. And the coalition probably won't be picking up any seats in New South Wales. Apart from regaining the seat of Hughes, where the independent threat, it wasn't really a something that was mentioned in the MRP tallies. As for if another independent is going to win in New South Wales, there has been some polls pointing to it, but it's questionable whether those polls are actually that accurate. But it's also a question of whether the MRP is that accurate. So I'm just going to give it to another independent there. North Sydney. There's a couple of places where it could happen. I think one's probably going to happen. And then in Victoria, they're at Strangling in Corangamite, but they are ahead both in Chisholm and Higgins. So I'd give them at least one seat there. And independent, again, I'd give at least one to an independent there out of Goldstein or Kooyong. In South Australia, I still don't believe that the Labor Party are going to win Sturt, but it looks like it could be a chance, judging by the swing that's going on. The Labor Party are only just ahead in the seat of Bass, but it's looked like it's more likely that they'll gain a seat rather than not. So I guess I would give Labor a seat in Tasmania, and in Western Australia, they're pretty clear on two. I'm being quite conservative, Labor on 77 seats. I think it's perfectly fair that my last prediction was Labor 75. This is Labor on 77. With the increase in Labor support in the polls, them gaining at least two seats makes perfect sense. And yes, I do believe that Labor are on track to win this election. So the poll bludger has sort of gotten state totals based on the results of the MRP polling. Now this obviously is only for candidates in the lower house, so we're not getting the sort of juicy observations on people voting for Jackie Lambie or Nick Xenophon. But New South Wales, I mean that's going to be the same as usual. But the real question here is, are there states where Labor could possibly win 3 seats? As opposed to the regular 2 that they would get. In Victoria, Labor are ahead of the coalition, but the coalition will probably get ahead because of United Australia Party and One Nation preferences. That's a big maybe. In Queensland, can Labor get 2 seats? Because that's all they can really get there. The coalition are actually on 39%, which is pretty high for them, and One Nation on 8.8%. Labor on 29.7%. Their result in the Senate is usually a couple points lower than their result in the House, but them and the Greens are collectively up about 4%, which means there is a good chance that they can sneak by with 3 seats. Well, the question is, if the coalition are going to get 2 and One Nation get 1, or the coalition just going to get 3, and with a percentage of 8.8 from One Nation, and also Pauline Hanson running, I believe they'll get a seat there. But yeah, I don't know. That last seat in Queensland is, I don't know. Western Australia, the coalition are ahead, and with the help of One Nation and United Australia parent preferences, I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that they'll win 3 seats in Western Australia. In South Australia, Labor are ahead. One Nation are on 5%. The Greens are only 10%, so they need to make up 4% themselves. So once again, sort of questionable. Nick Xenophon is another sort of option. I don't know. I really don't know about that. But yeah, if Nick Xenophon does well, it's probably just going to deny both parties the option of getting 3 seats. And in Tasmania, Labor still on a really anemic 32.4. If you add up all of these, this is like less than 80%. So there's an over 20% others vote in Tasmania. So I don't know how that's going to go. At the moment, I just think that probably Jackie Lambie is going to win another Senate seat in Tasmania at this point. Yeah. So yeah, all we can really get out of this is that the coalition are not doing too badly on their primary votes. It seems they might get hammered a little bit in the Senate. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a massive blowout of a Senate anyway for either party, it seems. But yeah, we don't really know. Oh, I just want to take a look at some of these prediction websites. They've changed a little bit. I don't think they've changed based on the MRP polls, but they have changed based on the other polls that have come out this week. This one has Labor up to a lot since those polls were released. They now have a 80% chance of winning. This is AE forecasts, and a 73% chance of a majority. It has Labor um, uh, about equal with the coalition to win Casey, slightly with a deficit to win Lindsay. Goldstein is the most likely for an independent to win. It has them ahead in Banks, ahead in Hasluck. Um, Kooyong, there's a bit of a deficit for the independent, and they don't quite make it on Leichhardt, Dixon, Bennelong. But it does have the Labor Party getting 80 seats. So pretty similar to the MRP prediction. If we go on to Marnium Interata, 80% for a chance for an outright majority for Labor, 90% they'll have more seats, and a median of 82 seats. And if we go down to what those seats are, that was just you can do this thing where you can simulate a prediction basically. So, which is pretty cool. Um, let's see what we'll get here. It's very unlikely that it'll be a coalition win. That's just how the mathematics works. This one's giving Labor 82 seats, so yeah, pretty much the median. But yeah, with the coalition with a higher primary vote and them Labor winning with 52.3. But this has basically the left with a slightly greater chance to win the seat of Brisbane. Kooyong has the coalition on 50% and the rest with the rest of the 50%. It's 50-50 for Reid, according to this. Coalition is slightly ahead of Hasluck. Labor ahead in the seat of Banks, just like the other poll. Labor ahead in Longman, Robertson, Braddon, behind in Casey, ahead in Chisholm, behind in Dixon, behind in Higgins, behind in Leichhardt. And interestingly, they have like the Labor massively ahead in Lindsay and Boothby and Pierce and Bass. So and Swan. So yeah, this does have some interesting observations. I'm not exactly sure how it got there. And the other website, which I haven't touched on before, I don't believe, is Buckley's and Nunn, and it has Labor on about a 70% chance of gaining a majority, and it has them improving a little bit since the earlier weeks of the campaign. But then it estimates that the Labor Party will the chances will narrow as the campaign goes on. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Labor looking pretty good. I think Albanese did pretty well on tonight's apparent final debate on Channel 7. So things are only looking up. I will probably have another prediction either Saturday or Sunday because it might just be better if I wait until the big polls are out before I start yapping on about what I think is going to happen. I don't know if there's anything going to be any like other new big developments before Saturday, but like this is the time when a lot of things happen very fast. So yeah, big surprise that Labor have managed to come back as well as they've done in the past a week or so, and yeah, it's looking very tough for the moment for the coalition to have any chance of getting a majority government. And as a lot of people have said, the only option they kind of have left is that the polls had a massive fail, much like in 2019, and a bigger fail than in 2019. But I think that's pretty unlikely, much like this website, which gives the coalition a 8.1% chance of majority. So that's a less than 1 in 10 chance. Okay, that's it. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.